Welcome to the Discover Your Potential podcast hosted by me, Alexis Nolan. In this podcast, I talk with people who have achieved their potential and share insights and advice for how to achieve your own. I share stories from diverse experiences and backgrounds with the hope that you can take these learnings and apply it for yourself. In this episode of Discover Your Potential, I'm joined by my new friend, Vadic Patel, a former consultant turned founder turned culinary artist and much more. He has experience in ventures of all sizes. He co-pioneered the creation of a new business unit that achieved over 6 figures in revenue within just 6 months. And he joins me now to share his takeaways from his diverse experience. So Vadic, thank you for joining the podcast.
Hey, Alexis, thanks for having me on.
I want to give you the opportunity to share your experience in your own words and let these viewers get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, well, you did a phenomenal job summing that up for me.
Did my research.
I'll see if I can. Definitely did. Let me see if I can follow on that. So, I'm Vadic. I started my career in M&A consulting. It was a great adventure to get into right out of school. It kind of taught me a lot about I am chaotic and I love different things and I have ADHD to the max. So all that change of pace and just being able to see something new in different industries was awesome. But a lot of times I would leave work and would feel no impact, or my impact was so minuscule because our teams were 100 plus people and the whole consulting spiel. And so it actually led us to come through and figure out that there are bigger problems to solve and you can make impact even if it's at a smaller scale. And so it led to the co-founding of Docket, and that's where I've really worked hard on indexing from like the Fortune 50 companies all the way down to like 2 people. And so it was interesting coming to the founding days. It was leaving a cushy salary. It was leaving all the resources that you had behind and really just doing all this stuff yourself. And it was quite challenging. There were more challenges than we anticipated. Things like, COVID and such popping up in the middle of that. Yeah, just one minor thing in there. But it taught me a lot about resilience, resourcefulness, just putting yourself out there, and similar to our meeting and whatnot, it's just like say hello to people, and you never know where things will go. You never know where relationships will take you. And being a founder is very humbling in many ways, and it taught me a lot of those skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of our viewers too, Vadic just, you reach out, you found me on LinkedIn and you made the connection. Like you're just used to, if you want to do something, you just go ahead and do it. I know you talked about ADHD. I feel the same way when I get like really pumped about something. I just need to do it. I need to do it right now. And that forming of a connection is so incredibly important, because look at us now, we're recording a podcast. Like that's pretty badass.
Yeah. And it's, the mentality behind it is, what's the worst that can happen? Someone's going to say no. Like, cool, I've heard no my entire life. And so what's like one more no?
Yeah.
And I think having that attitude is super important towards not being afraid of rejection in all aspects of life, right? And
Absolutely.
It will get you a lot further.
Yeah, you definitely have that grit and resilience. And I think that showcases too, when I think about your experience and your diverse set of experiences, there's some qualities that are transferable to these, right? What else has been transferable skills as you went from consulting to founding your own thing and then to totally pivoting and doing something else like culinary school? Kind of what was transferable there?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot I think that comes across. The first one is being humble. I think that is a skill set that is very, very transferable in what I'll call the professional or my career aspect. It was being humble as a founder, right? There were days where you had the signature on the dotted line, and then all of a sudden budgets got canceled or something happened.
Yeah.
And that revenue that may be so minuscule, but is so important to the business and so important to investors, is just gone, and you have to stay humble and stay kind of focused. Crazy. And it was the same skill set in culinary school. It's, you may be a really good chef, you may have amazing knife skills, but they will humble the shit out of you as soon as you walk into that kitchen, because It's a hierarchy. There is like this whole
Yeah.
concept of working in a kitchen is, you have tenure and you work your way up. And we are at the bottom of the bottom being students. And so I think that was one that was very transferable. And then the other that really comes to mind is just being very strong in your work ethic. There are many days where, again, I go back to like the consulting days or the founder days where if you don't have the work ethic or you don't have the grind in you, it is really hard to pull yourself up and out and be able to just get to like the next day or the next project or the next
Sure.
thing to get done because there are a million things that are happening every day. And I think that in culinary school is also very, very important is you have to have a crazy work ethic. You want to do it. You want to learn.
Yeah.
And if you do it with like respect and openness, it tends to be like, would I do it again? Probably not. Was it one of the best experiences of my life? Like,
Yeah.
also no doubt. So
Yeah.
it's a love-hate thing.
Yeah, yeah. When I think of like the culinary experience and being humbled, it's just that meme of like, you're an idiot sandwich. Like, say, you know what I mean? And, I've seen, The Bear and there's just so many amazing like cooking shows out there. But yeah, hats off to you for diving into that. I've only known a few rare people who have gone and attempted it. And you're one of the few who's like seen it through. So it's humbling for sure, but to have the grit to be able to do it, that's just something else. That's really incredible. And my follow-up question to that too is, as you were thinking about going to culinary school, what were you feeling in that moment in time before you had made the decision? Like, what was the thought process there that you were just like, I think I'm going to try this thing out?
Yeah. It was in the back of my mind for quite some time where I had joined a Series C startup that was awesome. I was getting to do this like really anomaly of a role where I was an internal consultant, but I also got to do like long-term strategy projects. It was a ton of fun, but
Yeah.
also a shit ton of work. And I entered that role a bit burned out. And so in the back of my mind, there's always this thought of, what if life was just more than chasing the next promotion or chasing the next salary raise? Like, what if there is
Yeah.
fulfillment in just like passion? And so the idea of culinary school came up. I was like, okay, like two things I really love in life, basketball and cooking. And I was like, well, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be a professional athlete. So like, let's throw that one out the
That one's
window.
gone.
That one's gone. No matter how many rec leagues I win, like
Oh my goodness.
will not be a professional athlete. But culinary school is way more attainable and way more realistic.
Sure.
And so I applied on a whim to Le Cordon Bleu and interesting
school,
like
by the way.
big school,
Yeah.
big school. I think like 18 campuses around the world. Like
That's awesome.
many Michelin star chefs have come out of there.
Yes.
And so I applied. And there was this like weird inflection point with the startup where we were gearing up for an exit, and there were like, the ability to either continue down that path or have the ability just to like walk away. And I think the confidence that I built in myself just to be like, okay, I got into this school. Should I do it? Should I not? Again, it's that same hurdle of I have this like really cushy salary and I have all these things that I really love in life, and
Yeah.
am I willing to like give those up and just like pack my bags and move to Madrid? And I just said,
Yeah.
screw it. Like life is short. You don't really know what's going to come out of it. And for me, it was like wanting to build a connection and network that was just so different than tech. I think that was like
Yeah.
the most valuable thing was I needed diversity in my group, and a lot of what I saw, what I was hanging around was just another me, and I started to feel complacency in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I resonate with that a lot in so many ways of just, and again, this goes back to you reaching out via LinkedIn. Like you've just made a brand new connection with somebody that has, we have similar backgrounds, but not really at the same time too. Right. It's just,
Yeah.
You never know what else is out there. And I think to Tech's credit too, there is definitely a breadth of experience to be said about some of the folks that I've come across. But yet, I mean, culinary school is rare on that list of resumes, right? And I think about kind of that pivotal moment that you had. And should I just do it? Should I just say, screw it and just go for it? Like, I mean, that takes discipline. It takes motivation to see something through like that. I mean, same thing when you went from consultant and kind of through your experience as a founder and, startup life. And there's a lot of discipline that comes through that. Like, what's your advice to people and just how you keep yourself disciplined, how you keep yourself motivated, whether this is just personal things that you do in your day-to-day, daily habits and so on, but what are those things that come to mind for you?
Yeah, discipline is super, super important. And I think very well said from your perspective of it's needed if you wanted to like take on new challenges and do new things. Things that like I really focus on is introspection work a ton. So it's like, okay, I want to do the next thing or I want to like take on the next challenge. Like I do a lot of introspective work to be like, okay, am I ready to do that mentally? Am I ready to do that physically?
Yeah.
And like, what are the things that I need to like discover about myself or think that I will discover in that journey that I need to work on now? And that is like super important, but for the most part, discipline is all about self-confidence as well. There is a lot of taking on the fear and risk and just everyone has different risk profiles. I would say mine's a little bit more extreme than others.
Risk averse versus not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm definitely like not very risk adverse because my perspective has always been like the worst possible scenario of doing anything is I learn. Right.
Yes.
And like, if that's the worst case, that's still a beautiful outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm super disciplined in terms of like, from a physical aspect, making sure I'm in the gym, making time for like myself.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better at this, but like understanding the power of just saying no to things, I think has been super important to, again, stay on my schedule, stay on my discipline.
Yep.
To be able to do, very picky with your time. I think that's like very underrated. People can say yes to a lot of things and like find that fulfillment in social aspects. And I'm a very social person, so I do too. Yeah. But I think the power of saying no is equally important to make sure like you set time for yourself.
Yeah. There's three things that you hit here and time management is crucial because when you're trying to find a new opportunity or when you're thinking about your next step, you're really trying to get out there and be open. And so you're more flexible to other people and like, hey, do you have time for a 10-minute chat? Do you have time for, and you're trying to be open-minded and make the time. But at the same time, there's that balance of like, I need to make sure it's the right thing for me. This is going to be kind of a milestone towards what I'm actually going after instead of saying yes to all opportunities. And that's why I said yes to like your LinkedIn request. I was like, I definitely want to chat with you. You have an incredible experience. You've got a really cool background. Odds are I will absolutely learn something from you and like have this great connection, for the rest of my days. But it's just kind of striking that balance of time management. And the other thing that you said too, which is confidence. So I just finished Phil Knight's memoir, The Creator of Nike. In his book, there's one quote that's confidence is cash. Same thing as you're investing cash into a business, people are investing their confidence in you. And so if you're not a very confident person, if you're not confident in your goals and your target and what you're going after, it is really hard for other people to want to invest in you. So I can imagine how incredibly important like having that confidence is, right?
Yeah.
And then the third piece that you mentioned, just around discipline and your self-introspection. I want to double tap on that because that's a huge area for me. You like struck a chord as I've been doing a lot of that myself. And, when you think about your introspection and you're listening to your mind, you're listening to your body, what are the questions that you're asking yourself as you're thinking about kind of your next step or you're just taking a moment? What are you asking yourself? What do you think about?
Yeah, I do this exercise every single day before I go to bed. And it's asking myself, name two things that really gave me energy today and name two things that really demotivated me today. And I think like on a weekly basis, I go back and I read, I said, okay, like what were the activities that I was doing that was like really energizing, and what were the activities that I were doing that were like really demotivating in this period of life?
Yeah.
And like those notes to myself were the reason I ended up like going to culinary school, because I would go back and read and say, oh, I really enjoyed making X, Y, and Z meal, or I like really enjoyed, cooking this pastry.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I doing? Like, if I'm telling myself and I'm introspective and having this self-confidence, that the things that are bringing me joy every day for months on end is cooking, like, why not go pursue that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Absolutely.
one thing that really helps. And then the other is, I think similar to you, I do a lot of like self-help type books. And those
Yeah.
can be like very, very hit or miss. As I'm
Yeah.
sure most of
I
viewers
have.
will, most of
Yeah.
viewers will
I've got my
relate to
fair
that
share.
one.
Yeah.
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 I have books I recommend, and I have books that I would say run far, far away from.
Yeah.
But I think reading is just like a really good outlet for me just to relax the brain, still learn at the same time, and then just like continuously be on this like path of improvement.
Yep.
And the third, I think that is super, like, yes, introspection is super important, but I also do introspection through like learning through others' experiences. And I think like it can be dichotomous to say that a bit, but if I have someone in my like close network that I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about this experience and they have something that they've shared that can resonate with me, I view that experience in like a really strong light and say, okay, X, Y, and Z person had this experience with this thought, like that is not just going to be something I brush off. It's something that is going to go into that part of being, that introspection work.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple, the questions at the beginning, and I'm curious, like, I kind of have a similar exercise, and particularly when before I go to bed, I have like a nighttime journal. I just like write everything out, and I have a couple of questions. It's that daily routine that I think
Yeah.
is so incredibly helpful. What have you learned? You have a couple of favorite books and you've got this daily routine. Where did you learn it, and kind of what books are the ones that you are more than happy to just revisit?
Yeah. There are two that I go back to a lot. I think the first one is Never Split the Difference. And it's a classic. It's for the viewers who don't know the book, it's a great book on just like negotiating everything in your life. And it's written by this ex-international FBI hostage negotiator. He is an incredible human. He's taught classes at Harvard and Stanford
Yeah.
and U Chicago. And the premise essentially just it tells you about 11 life lessons, and each one starts with like a hostage situation that he was in, but like how it can relate to your life in these like little ways. And one of them was the fear of, like being able to reach out to someone via an email and just like never hearing no was super, super impactful.
Yeah.
Like asking and framing the questions in the right way to engage an audience or engage the reader or whoever you're reaching out to, as it was a negotiation, as if it were a negotiation, was super cool. And then the best book that I like have read so many times is Kitchen Confidential. It's not about self-help. It's actually quite the opposite. It's all around Anthony Bourdain's life.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's got a special place in my heart, just for the person he was. He goes into great detail about what the kitchen was like in the 70s and 80s. And he really like talks to his audiences. I like wasn't a great chef, and I like got lucky a lot of times in life, and like, but that's okay too. Like that can also happen.
Yeah.
And so I just love his perspective on what life is or can be.
Cool. Yeah, you just gave me two new book recommendations. I'm actually shocked that I haven't heard of them. So I'm going on Amazon right after this to go get those. And so now that you're at this moment, when we first touched base, you were you are kind of in that curiosity, what is next phase. And so as you think about all the lessons that you've had from culinary experience, from your founder experience, consulting experience, and so on, as you kind of double down on your introspective work right now, what is it that you're looking for kind of in this next chapter for you? Like, what is the dream state, the dream role, and what sort of qualities can you take from all of that experience and dive right into this next venture?
Yeah, I think the dream, I'll have two answers if that's okay.
Yeah.
The dream job is owning a food truck in San Diego on the beach, slinging breakfast burritos and surfing.
Yeah.
The dream job doesn't pay the bills. So there's like the realistic
Yeah.
aspect that comes
That
into
sounds
it.
not too shabby. Yeah. If there came a paycheck with it, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this next role or chapter of my career, I really teased out the idea of like what I want to work in the culinary world. Like, is this something I really want to pursue? And the lesson I walked away with was I have this deep, deep passion for cooking and making and curating experiences for people, but it's for people I love. And it's not for the masses. It's not this like big chain reaction of things that need to happen to like get a dish out. It's really like, I want to invite 5 people to my house. I want to throw this like really fun, intimate dinner party and share that experience and skill with others, not necessarily like do it at scale,
Yeah.
which was good. It was a good way to learn that. But in terms of not being culinary, I think the next thing really is interested in chief of staff, GM type roles, and really that is working with accomplished leaders, learning a ton of how the C-suite interacts, and I have some exposure to that, but just seeing it in a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But also having the ability to have a bit of more operating experience and making impact, I think, is like the 30,000 foot overview of like what I'm looking for. And at a company that's making a difference. I think that is, I have to believe in the mission. I think for the first time, I am aligning my personal beliefs with like my career beliefs. And there's some interesting things out there. There was an HBR article that like was, it's called When Passion Leads to Burnout. And the whole idea was like, when you chase these passion projects, like you actually get more burnt out because you have this like innate ability to like want to keep trying to fix things.
Yeah. It's very
So
personal.
it's like, yeah, it's like super interesting. But I think if I'm not working on a problem I care about, I will just check out. There's too many things happening for me to, lose my focus. And so I want to make sure I'm very dedicated to the cause of where I end up next.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal, a phenomenal path. And I think that's also just really great advice for anybody looking with, not necessarily even just chief of staff, but looking to join a company. You are absolutely more motivated to work for somebody and to work with this team and see through those tough times and those problems. I mean, I'm currently with a company that, I've worked in advertising for almost 10 years and now I just switched to electric vehicles. It's just something totally different. It's just so awesome because I can get behind the mission. I can get behind the leadership team. And you're just more willing to put in that hard work and just kind of see through, when the stock price is low or the industry is just kind of at a rough point. So yeah, I think you have an exciting journey ahead of you. You have a ton of experience to go into that. And another question I had for you too is, you're thinking about this next venture. You have all this diverse experience. What is some advice that you have for somebody who is looking to make a career pivot or try something different?
Yeah. I think the first is like have patience and grace with yourself. Those who are often looking to make career pivots can be like driver personalities, right? They're burnt out. They're trying to just do something that's making them feel fulfillment or happiness. And again, I may be projecting here more than anything, but for the most part, it's like be patient and gracious with yourself through the process. You may not hit a home run when you make that career pivot like I did. I didn't hit that home run, but I learned something that was like really true to myself, which was I can't do culinary for the scales, but I still love to cook.
Yeah.
And you learn that through the patience with yourself. And the other is tried and true. Just do it, right? Like just do it
Yep.
and put yourself out there, get out there. Of course, be well prepared and educated for like what you're trying to jump into, but you'll never have all the pieces to the puzzle. Like you will never know the outcome of what you're going to go do. But the worst case is like you can always go back to what you were already doing. Like that's
Yeah.
always there. And I think for a lot of folks who are, I'm definitely extremely fortunate to be able to do what I did and take the last year off. But for others, it can be daunting or it can be this like big
Yeah.
thing, but you can
Yep.
always go back to what you were doing. And I think that safety or security blanket should like help you kind of make the push.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I just to go from the security of, your experience with consulting and founding, like to totally pivot to culinary. I mean, if that's not proof enough that anybody can just go and just try something different, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's so awesome. And I mean, seriously, Vadic, like your experience is really amazing. And I hope one day that, we can have a nice dinner party. We can shoot the shit,
Yeah.
cook me some good stuff. But thank you
Next
so
time I'm in
much
town, no doubt.
yeah, please. Or next time I'm on the East Coast. But yeah, seriously, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I mean, huge appreciation for you, even just taking the initiative to reach out to me. I know, our journey is just getting started here, and I seriously cannot wait to see what you do next.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on, and for your viewers, I think just a shout out to the type of person you are, just to be able to take that message, accept it, have the call, and the folks don't know what our conversation was, but like super, super helpful for just my career journey, and I think for you to impart that wisdom and just like give me your time is very, very much respected and appreciated. So thank you as well.
Appreciate it, Vadic.